Music producers. What does a music producer even do? In this video, I'll discuss the different types of music producers and how music production has evolved over the years, from an expensive day job to a fun hobby and mobile game anyone can tune into. What is a DAW? Technology changes how we live. What used to be a whole studio with instruments, mixing equipment and pedals. And for those who don't know, pedals are these weird box looking things used for effects. Yeah, I never knew what they were until like a month ago. All these bits of equipment are now all compacted into a piece of software your computer or phone can run. This software is known as a digital audio workstation, otherwise known as a DAW. DAW. Yeah, and for the rest of this video, I'll be referring to them as DAWs. I ain't saying that long ass name, bro. Now, the most popular DAWs, or the big three, are Ableton Live, Logic Pro, and Fruity Loop Studio. Unfortunately for us broke ass, never had a job ass youngins still going to school, you have to pay up for these services, with Ableton Live costing 260 Great British Pounds for their standard edition, Logic Pro costing 200 Great British Pounds for their regular edition, which is the only one they have, and FL Studio costing 200 Great British Pounds for their producer edition. But if you don't really feel like paying up so quickly, you can always try the free trials, with Ableton's 30-day free trial, Logic's 90-day free trial, and FL Studio's permanent free trial. I mean, it's permanent, but you can't save your projects, so it's really not that good. Which is similar to GarageBand, as it's just a free but worse version of Logic. However, you've always got to expect to catch anything that's free, as there's always obvious limitations. Or you can sail the seas, and but I didn't tell you to do that, you know. You heard. Now, with the increased accessibility of DAWs at home and on the go, there's been a recent uprising in new genres and young talent, as you get kids at home in their bedrooms producing bangers, all while living in their mum's house making bread before they even finish school. Like, what the hell, bro? Sign me up. Samplers. Using a DAW isn't the only modern way to produce music. Using a device known as a sampler is another way to produce music. A sampler is one of those square things with more squares than knobs coming in all shapes and sizes. This one is one of the most famous samplers, called the Akai MPC. Akai being the company and MPC meaning Music Production Center. The main companies selling popular samplers are Akai, Ableton, Roland, Teenage Engineering, and Electrum. But the prices. These prices aren't really beginner friendly, especially considering the prices of a DAW and the fact that DAWs have free trials. Yeah, ain't no way anyone's gonna let you borrow a sampler for a week or a month, especially if you have greasy ass fingers, bro. Ugh. Now, how do modern producers actually make music? Well, there are two main ways to produce music. The first method is by using VSTs, virtual studio technology, but everyone calls them VSTIs. No one actually says the I, but it's virtual sound instrument, which in basic terms is something that turns a key press into any sound you want, almost. VSTs are used in DAWs, and all DAWs come with their own free VSTs, but lots of people buy their own better VSTs. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Serum. I know this shit looks like some PhD sound engineering type BS, but there are also sound presets people use, and it's not as complex as it looks. But you don't need all the paid VSTs to become a good producer. Alongside VSTs, plugins are also used to modify how any and everything sounds. Also, you may hear about people who use sound fonts. Sound fonts are basically the same as VSTs. I couldn't really find the actual difference. All I know is that they have different file types, and most video game sounds are typically from sound fonts. Now, the second method of producing music is called sampling, not to get confused with samplers. Sampling, meaning to use a sound recording. Sampling is the technique of taking a sample of someone else's song and creating something new with it. Or you could sample the most devious fart. This process can be on a scale of simple, complex, and J-Dilla. As there are some songs where it's just a sample loop of drums, and others where the producers think they're doing open heart surgery or brain surgery, bro. Like, what the hell is this? Sampling can be done in most DAWs in a few ways, like manually chopping and arranging or using plugins. Most DAWs have built-in samplers, but most plugins are better, namely Serato. Serato even has their own DAW, which you can get a free trial of. And it's pretty fun sampling with Serato, but it's not that great of a DAW. But sampling is not limited to DAWs, as hence the name, you can use samplers to sample. By using the built-in software and importing sounds from an external device like a laptop, you can load samples into the device and use the little pads to play each sample or chop. Music production has come a long way, from its beginnings with devices like the music box and the phonograph in the 1800s, thanks to people like Thomas Edison. I'd love to imagine people in those days as like the musical cavemen, because the 1800s is like a cajillion years ago, bro. Many years later, in the early 1900s, tape recording was invented, and around the same time people began experimenting with producing music using a turntable, which is now sort of known as turntablism. Nah, it's not religion. Turntablism is basically sampling straight from the record player. However, it took to like the 1970s for both methods to be used in mainstream music production and hip-hop's production, the best genre, not being biased of course. I can see how this era of music production is being more of the hunter-gatherer era, with more methods being discovered. In the late 1960s, samplers were developed, but they look like this. The majority of samplers between the 1960s and early 80s were piano-based samplers, which acted a lot like piano synths. They may look and sound the same, but the difference is that a synthesizer creates its own sound through multiple processes, and samplers, well, in short, they take a pre-recorded sound and manipulate that sound to play in the different keys. Both synths and samplers were not easily accessible to the average Reese or Tyrese, as it would cost in the tens of thousands of pounds. Now, in the late 1980s, things got real, as samplers became much cheaper and more accessible. Most notably, the Akai MPC-60 was made. Akai went on to make improved versions of these MPCs and were used by the likes of the legendary Jay Dilla and Kanye West. People today still use older samplers because of their unique sounds, which I can't tell. Like, bro, who actually says, "Ooh, this beat sounds like it was produced using the Akai 1 Plus"? Like, bro, who asked? On top of samplers, digital audio workstations, or DAWs, were emerging in the late 80s. Pro Tools, made for the Mac, is one of the earliest popular DAWs, followed by the release of the big three, Logic, Ableton and FL Studio, all within the next 5 or so years. But I have no idea how they compared to each other back then. This era of music production is like the Industrial Revolution. Like, mad stuff was being made and introduced real quick, bro. In today's day and age, producers are still using both samplers and DAWs. However, DAWs are being further refined and are introducing new technologies like stem extraction, which basically means if you get one full song in its waveform, you can separate each instrument into its own separate waveform, just like this. There are also mobile versions of many DAWs, like FL Studio Mobile, BandLab, Ableton, and more. As for samplers, you can get them to be almost pocket-sized with Teenage Engineering's Pocket Operator, Ableton Go, and quite a few more. Looking into the future, I can see AI tools being used to streamline the music production process, since we already have a few AI tools which can create unique melodies and samples. But I personally don't believe that AI will completely take over music production and ruin the industry. I just think it will change how we produce music if we use it as a tool. Personally, I believe that the increased accessibility to music production tools has had a positive effect on the music industry as a whole, as it takes away the luck of having family links or knowing a guy. It has allowed people to freely create anything they want, even if it makes you want to pour bleach into your ears. If you want to learn how to produce music, I'd recommend using FL Studio, literally because all the YouTube tutorials use it, and most of the producer community on YouTube use it. Why? I'm not 100% sure, but it's probably due to FL's easy-to-use piano roll, one-time purchase, and for being on all platforms. Do you know who else is easy to use? Yeah, this is the end of the video. Enjoy this beat I got locked up though. Peace!
When your dog is taking a shit, take one next to him. Be a man.